Hello and welcome to the Action Network Podcast, UFC Betting Preview. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by Billy Ward to help you break down this weekend's UFC card, give your best bets, favorite underdogs, top props, and more. And if you'd like to instantly tail some of the bets that we discuss on today's show, make sure to find the quick slip links both in the podcast and the video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/betnow. And with the WNBA season tipping off, if you're an Action Pro subscriber, our brand new WNBA projections are available in the Action Network apps. Whether you're looking for an edge betting WNBA sides, totals, or player props, Action Pro projections are the perfect tool for your toolbox this season. If you aren't an Action Pro subscriber yet, you can get $20 off of an annual subscription right now. Just visit actionnetwork.com/pro to sign up. That's $20 off of the annual subscription price at actionnetwork.com/pro. And with that, we're going to jump into this weekend's UFC Fight Night main event, flyweight division between Erin Blanchfield, currently about minus 250, and Macy, the future Barber, at plus 200. Fight around minus 200 to go to a decision. That's roughly where I would consider betting this fight, maybe up even to minus 250 to go to a decision. Women's flyweight bouts, on average, go to decision at about a 65% clip, 68% clip in 3-round fights. It is up to 72% in 5-round fights, which self-select for more durable fighters. Fighters who make it to 5-round main events have generally been more durable, gotten more wins, have not been finished if they're going to progress to that point. So we do, see the higher decision rates in 5-round fights in the same division, just because those fighters tend to be more durable, even though the fights are extending an additional 10 minutes. But I did project this line closer to minus 300. In terms of a side, I am very curious how the grappling looks here, and I'm sure you are as well, just because the strength and physicality of Barber could potentially pose issues for Blanchfield. I'm not sure if they will. Blanchfield, clearly the better grappler when the fight hits the mat. Has controlled about 90% of her grappling positions in the UFC, 96% of her grappling time in the UFC. Barber closer to 40%. So if these two do end up grappling, I expect Blanchfield to get the better of it, more top time in this fight. Question is whether Macy is able to scramble out from bottom, recover to her feet, and then pour on the volume with superior power down the stretch. Blanchfield does throw out a lot of volume herself, but I think Barber is going to land the more impactful shots on the feet. I think she's going to look particularly strong in the clinch. And just overall, she has a little bit more tenacity to her game, tends to be a little bit more aggressive, meaner, and looks like she actually wants to finish the fight, where Erin is going to be controlling position a little bit more, going for submissions, but not necessarily drawing blood optics probably from Barber. So I lean to Barber by decision at plus 450. I'm going to bet the GTD at minus 200. That's not to say I don't show value on Blanchfield by decision. I made her decision line about minus 115. You can bet her at plus money as well. I would just rather take the woman with longer odds in a fight that I expect to be close and competitive, and hopefully Barber can edge it down the stretch. However, I think you're leaning into the cardio dynamics here. The fact that Barber has not been 5 rounds, Blanchfield coming off of 2 5-round fights. You prefer her cardio, I would imagine, in the 4th and 5th rounds, because you're betting Blanchfield by round 4, 5, or decision at minus 135. Does that mean, Billy, that you're also waiting for a live entry potentially on her as well after the first couple of rounds?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know that we'll necessarily get a better price if she gets a takedown in round 1. That might be all we get. So I'm not staking too much hope on that actually happening that way. But not only the cardio and the experience in 5-round fights, but if you look at Blanchfield's 2 5-round fights, she didn't really have a clear plan on how to manage her gas tank in the first fight. Like, she tried some stuff early that didn't really work. Then she was more tired going on. Kind of never really got going against Manon Fiorot. And then against Rose Namajunas, she basically just took the first 2 rounds off and stayed safe, and then took over in round 3, 4, and 5. Which I'm not sure she'll go that exact same plan against Barber. I think Barber's a little bit too dangerous on the feet to totally coast against. But just seeing how she progressed and having that experience in 5 rounds, which Macy does not, I think is a huge edge. And I was trying to join you even before I saw your pick and find a way to bet Barber or get there. But the more you watch her tape, it's not that her takedown defense is necessarily bad, but you pointed out the ground control time stat. She doesn't really get up very well. She spends a lot of time on her back when she's the one who gets taken down. She's not really even looking for submissions all that much. I think she's officially got like 2 submission attempts in the UFC or something. But she's just kind of not that urgent getting out. and that's against fighters with a lot worse grappling than Erin Blanchfield. So I don't see her improving that here. If I was Macy Barber, I think I would actually wrestle proactively. Like, she might be able to just size and strength her way into some takedowns and eat some clock that way. You know, you can't put me on your back if I take you down first kind of situation. I don't think she's going to do that, though, because it is a dangerous game plan against Blanchfield. Blanchfield, not a great takedown accuracy rate, but she's going to keep trying. And she'll eventually get one, and pretty much any round she gets a takedown, I think she will win fairly easily against Macy. And yeah, I went with the 4-5 decision instead of the decision. Not a huge price difference between those two things on the Blanchfield side. And if Macy's cardio is an issue and she tires in the 4th or 5th round, I could see that being, you know, a late submission for Blanchfield just because she does hunt those submission attempts. So I am fine with either woman goes to decision as well. That makes a lot of sense. Great price on Macy, which is very tempting. I think if she's going to win it, though, she has a little bit more inside the distance equity. Like a Barber knockout wouldn't shock me here. Like, the finish only money line I don't think was playable. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't very attractive. So I think there's a little bit of negative correlation between this fight going long and Barber winning, which is the only thing keeping me off it. But again, I'm poking tiny holes in a plus 450 bet. So it still makes sense. It's just, it was hard for me to mentally see how that happens, I guess, is where I ended up on it.
Yeah, finish only money line. Barber's about plus 130, Blanchfield minus 170. That seems about right considering where their money line pricing is. I would give Barber, you know, straight up out of 100%, I'd probably give her 5 to 10% more finishing upside. But when you compare that to where their money lines are, it makes sense that Blanchfield would still be favored in that market. I think I had one other question for you that I wanted to ask on this fight, but I can't seem to recall what that was. We're going to move on to the co-main event. If it comes to me, we'll go back to the main event. But both lean goes to decision. I think fine value on either fighter to win by decision. You're going to go with Blanchfield. Late props and decision, round 4 or 5 or decision at minus 135. I'm going to lay the juice on the GTD at minus 200. Lightweight co-main event between Mateusz Gamrot minus 165 and Ludovic Klein at plus 135. Fairly binary. Gamrot clearly the better wrestler. Klein the more dynamic, more dangerous striker. That's not to say Gamrot won't be competitive in the striking, that he can't stay safe defensively, but he does seem to get knocked down in basically every fight now, which when you're betting a guy on the money line, knowing one knockdown, one moment could sway around that he was otherwise winning with wrestling control is a little bit difficult to do just because you don't want to watch a guy dominate, 13 of the 15 minutes of the fight, get knocked down twice and lose on that alone. Like, that's a very frustrating way to bet, but basically that does mean Mateusz Gamrot almost needs to fight a perfect fight to win by decision. Not actually, but he's probably going to win the majority of the minutes here. I think Klein is going to need to swing the fight with bigger moments or get a finish. Now, something that really stands out about this matchup for Gamrot is Klein's size. Klein is a former featherweight. Gamrot has been fighting RDA, who's a former welterweight/lightweight. Jalen Turner, who's one of the biggest lightweights in the division, could probably compete at welterweight. I do think this is a big size difference for Gamrot relative to his recent opponents. Klein is 3 inches shorter, 2-inch reach advantage, though. In the pocket, I think he's going to be much more dangerous. At range, much more dangerous. He's also younger, quicker, 5 years younger. I'm not sure if you think Gamrot is starting to decline or people are just figuring out his style. That said, both of us like his odds to win inside the distance. You like him by submission. I like him ITD at plus 600. I think there's value on Klein to win by decision, given the facts that I already laid out at plus 330 if you want to go that route. But if you're going to bet the Gamrot side, I would bet him to finish the fight. What did you see between these two here, Billy? Why do you think Gamrot is capable of finishing Klein, considering he's not normally a finisher, though he did have that beautiful knee on the ground against CDF, I think it was he finished. Gamrot to win this fight inside the distance, I think we're getting a little bit extra juice considering he's won so many fights by decision, gotten a decision so many times. So how did you see this matchup playing out, and any alternative ways you'd bet it besides Gamrot's submission?
Yeah, I mean, my main bet is on Gamrot straight up. I'm worried about it for the same reasons you mentioned, and that's why he has so many split decisions, because there's a lot of fights where he's dominated most of the minutes and then got dropped. And I'm also a little bit nervous that one of those times he gets dropped will actually turn into a knockout. He's never been finished in his career, which is crazy because he seemingly goes down almost every fight, and Klein can hit pretty hard.
He
But a
recovers
couple
pretty quick,
things,
though. Like, he gets knocked down, but
yeah.
then he's, like, right back up in the fight, right? He's not, like, shaking off cobwebs for that long, it seems. He recovers quick.
Yeah, the Chumbawamba effect, as our audio producer will, I'm sure, splice into here as we talk about that. But yeah, I mean, but everyone does until they don't, which is what scares me,
Sure.
is that, like, everyone's got great recoverability until that one time the button actually finally goes all the way off, which I'm scared about, but I don't think it's going to happen in this fight. It's a big step down competition-wise for Gamrot. There's a couple technical things that stood out. One, this fight is in the apex, which really helps the wrestler in the small cage. And Gamrot, I saw someone post it. He's been very good in the apex. I think like all of his losses were in larger cages, and he's beat some guys in the apex. But the other thing, he's also very good against southpaws. And we normally think about how that impacts the striking, the matchup. But what Gamrot does when he's fighting lefties, he will switch from his normal southpaw stance to a right-handed stance, and then shoot in on the front leg of the lefty because it's so much closer to him when we do that opposite stance matchup. And it allows him to get to those single legs just super easy. And Klein, kind of longer, stands up pretty tall. Those are going to be available all day. And then also Gamrot catches kicks really well, which either means Klein won't kick, which is how he has both of his knockouts in the UFC, or he will kick and probably get taken down. So all of those technical things, like I was really trying to find a way to bet Klein when I was breaking down this fight, but all that technical stuff I saw just made it a really tough matchup stylistically here. And then also like takedown props on Gamrot. I think he's going to get 1 million of them. I don't know exactly what the lines were. It was like 5.5 at DraftKings, which I probably wouldn't take, but there's some opportunities there. And yeah, just the submission. He's like a multiple time European ADCC champion, can clearly do it. Klein's grappling is pretty untested. Like he has good grappling numbers, but he hasn't really fought anyone who's like who we think of as a grappling first fighter.
Right.
So at plus 900, plus 950, depending on where you look, I'm making a little bit of a sprinkle there. But I think Gamrot wins this one straight up just because of all the technical reasons I pointed out.
Yeah, he has better gas tank. I don't think Klein is, as you mentioned, really faced very many proactive grapplers. I believe Nate Landwehr ended up submitting him as Klein got tired. Klein was a pretty big favorite in that fight as well. So, yeah, Gamrot inside the distance for me at plus 600. May end up laying juice on the money line as well. Billy made some really good technical points there regarding the southpaw stance and the takedowns. I just think Gamrot in general is a very good fighter, but the big moments have nearly cost him multiple times of late. He also had that split decision over Sarukian, right? In the 5-round fight that he probably didn't deserve as well. Sarukian.
That was somehow a unanimous decision that he didn't deserve, but like he probably should have won the fights against. You could make a case for all three of his UFC losses being fights that he should have won. So
right,
like, yeah, it was a tough one when I was doing the luck ratings where I ended up just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, he's got some wins he doesn't deserve. He's got some losses he probably doesn't deserve. We'll call it even, was basically how I looked at it. But yeah, I mean, the Benny fight was a unanimous decision loss for him. That was probably the clearest loss, but also an elite grappler. I thought he beat Dan Hooker in his last fight and thus should be on a winning streak. Kind of cancels out the Sarukian gift decision.
Let's talk about two more fighters who may have popped up in your luck ratings this week. Ryan Dos Santos and Alice Ardeline. Dos Santos has lost 2 splits. She's 0-2 in the UFC. But every media scorecard had her winning both of those fights against Pooja Tomar and Talita Alankar. And then Ardeline 0-2, lost 2 unanimous decisions. 30% of her fans, 30% of fans had her beating Shauna Bannon, and 66% had her beating Melissa Martinez. Of those 2 fights, wouldn't you have said that Ardeline won or likelier to have won the Bannon fight as opposed to the Martinez fight? People gave her much more credit for the Martinez fight. And then where do these two like rank, relative to one another in terms of luck ratings? Because they've both been somewhat unlucky on the cards. I guess Dos Santos has been a little bit more unlucky losing actual splits. So how do you view these two relative to one another? I think we both clearly see value on the underdog side with Ardeline, but why and where do you view their luck rating history?
The Ardeline Bannon fight was a split decision that she lost. So she has 1 split and 1. Like, they've both exclusively lost close decisions in the UFC. This fight is like minus 500 to go to the judges or something crazy. And one woman is plus 200. Like, I'm not worried about who's been more or less unlucky. They both probably should be 1-1 based on like how they've actually performed. I don't really care. It's a fight that like Neither of them are very good. Neither of them have much finishing upside. They both exclusively get in close fights, and you're getting better than 2-1 on one fighter. Don't overthink it. I took Ardeline. I'm not sure how to say it. I don't really care that much. Early in the week in my luck rating, she's still there at about the same price. Yeah, don't think too hard.
Yeah, I made her plus 170. Not only,
Yeah.
fight heavily favored to go to a decision, but also the fighter with grappling upside, I believe, in a fight line to
They
go to a
both kind of.
decision. Yeah, I mean, I think of the two, the fighter who is likelier to get top time here for extended periods, I think, is Ardeline. I think Dos Santos may be likelier to finish if she gets on top. But yeah, underdog, fight heavily favored to go to a decision, minus 350 or higher everywhere, really minus 400, minus 450 or higher. So north of 80% implied, getting a woman in a fight where both fighters consistently are going to close competitive splits. We're basically just hoping to flip a coin here at plus 220 and hopefully cash an underdog ticket with it. Another underdog ticket you're interested in taking this weekend, Balaji Oki, short notice fight against Michael Aswell. Aswell lost a split to Bogdan Grad on Contender Series in 2024, I believe. He's never been finished. He's taking this one on short notice, though, in place of Markel Medeiros. Oki coming off of a loss against Chris Duncan, where he closes a minus 200 favorite. I believe you bet Duncan in that fight. You might have bet Duncan by submission as well. I'm not sure. But as well, the one concern here is that he's a featherweight coming up to lightweight. He's 2 inches shorter. There's a 4-inch reach discrepancy here, and Oki should have more power. So how do you see Aswell working his way into this fight, making things competitive? Does he need to grapple in order to have success, or do you think his striking can stay competitive with Oki? You're taking a big plus money number. Where would you bet this down to as well?
Yeah, those are the weight class in particular, and possibly the power is a significant concern. Keep in mind, everything I say is with the context of he's also about plus 300. So, cut me some slack when I'm overlooking some of that. I think Aswell needs to strike. When I broke him down in that Contender Series, I said he was a really clean striker. Bogdan Grad, also known for his striking, I was like, Grad needs to wrestle to win this fight. And he did, and that was what probably got him the split decision. It was super close. Like, it could have gone the other way, I thought, pretty easily. And then this one looks really good in hindsight, but Aswell's other career loss is to Yadier Del Val, who we just saw a couple weeks ago look awesome, who is a jiu-jitsu black belt, high-level judo guy, great grappler overall. And when I broke down the tape on Aswell, I was like, he's got super clean striking, very, very good technical striker. And, now both of his career losses are against guys who wrestled him. I don't think Oki is going to do that. He's got some takedowns in his UFC or Contender Series fights, but it's not like his go-to. Like, he wants to stand there and bang it out. And if they do that, we got one guy who's definitely more powerful, especially when we factor in the weight class in Oki. But the other guy I think is like the cleaner and more technical fighter in Aswell. And he's also, I think, 24 now. So we've got to project that he's going to be better than he has been when we've seen him in the past. And again, all of that, plus he's plus 300. I think probably like a striking-based decision is the likeliest path for Aswell, but he's got some pop. Like, he could catch him. I mean, half of his wins are knockouts, half are decisions, so it's pretty clear how that goes. Don't know if that power plays up going up a weight class here, which is why I'm not trying to, pick my shot one way or the other. But I think he lands a ton of strikes one way or the other. So 3-1 odds. I wish he had a full training camp. I wish he weren't giving up a weight class, but then we'd get plus 125 or whatever. So we'll take what we can get.
He was actually supposed to fight on I want to get the promotion right. He was supposed to fight on a card in June, a Fury FC card in June. So he was in training camp, may have cut the camp short, but he did have a fight booked coming up 3 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. So I would assume he was at least in the gym getting ready for that one. But yeah, definitely short notice, going up a weight class. Both concerns, but at the number, I think could be interesting, especially maybe taking a decision prop, Aswell to win by decision. Fight to go to decision is around a pick'em price. Considering the power advantage for Oki, that does lend itself to Aswell being competitive here at a minimum. So I think fight does go all 15 minutes. Maybe Aswell can steal a decision on the scorecards. Fight that I do not expect to go all 15 minutes. Zachary Reese against Dushko Todorovic. Reese about minus 250. Dushko about plus 200. Reese is the bigger man, 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage, but he has a very awkward style and a very incomplete MMA game. He's a very dynamic, fast, early finisher, but he also likes to play on his back, hunt for submissions off of his back. He carries big power. Dushko keeps his hands down. He is the karate style fighter, really like that karate stance, fights with his hands low. He's very hittable, does not have a great chin. But in an extended fight, I do think he's the more skilled MMA fighter. I think he has good striking, and I think he has more offensive wrestling upside of these two. I think Reese clearly has more finishing upside with the jiu-jitsu, but if somebody's going to hold top position for extended stretches, I actually think it's going to be Todorovic, and in an extended striking fight, I like his distance management and his volume at range as well. Reese can have more power, but I think Dushko can actually win minutes and stay competitive here as long as he doesn't die in the first couple minutes. So small pre-fight bet on Dushko plus 200, probably looking for a live bet after round one, assuming he doesn't get hurt bad or die. Any thoughts on that fight, Billy? Todorovic against Zachary Reese. Reese a fun fighter, but I do think he's flawed.
Yeah, I love the live angle. I'm very worried about Dushko early. 4 of his 5 UFC losses were in the first round. Zach Reese is going to come out and give you a real hard first round. Not always so great after that. It's a really weird fight, though, because the guys Dushko has beat in the UFC are combined like 3-15 in the promotion, and all have been cut. But the guys he lost to are actually all pretty good. Like, the worst opponent he's fought and lost to is probably Chidi Njokuani or maybe Puna Soriano. But, like, it's just really hard to get a, like, actual level on him, especially with, I believe he changed weight classes in there. Like, just a lot going on with Dushko where he makes it kind of hard to cap how he's going to be against someone like Reese. But, yeah, love the live stuff on Dushko. Not making a pre-fight bet myself just because it's scary. And, yeah. But, yeah, I'm with you more or less, I think. Theoretically, it just, you know, you could do like a Zach Reese round one and then try to get Dushko live or something like that, too. It would be a fun way to play it.
If I were a UFC matchmaker, I would just pair up Jordan Wright and Dushko Todorovic every month, every 3 months. Just like let one of them recover, whoever gets knocked out, and we run it back again in 3 months. I want to see those two fight in perpetuity. Both karate-style strikers. Neither has durability. Todorovic already finished Jordan Wright. I think Wright had his moments in that fight, though, in round one. So just love to see those two fight forever. They remind me a lot of one another, just from different countries and with slightly different skill sets. But yeah, would love to see those two run it back at some point, unless I guess Wright's probably already been cut from the promotion.
He got cut a long time ago. Yeah, he went like 1-5 in the UFC.
So before we get to our top props, just want to get Billy's take on Underdog this week, because we can go yard all baseball season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps you can pick and play now in your state. Millions of fans have already won millions making picks on our Underdog. Will you be next? To play, all you have to do is download the app and choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats. You can choose from things like home runs, strikeouts, total bases, significant strikes, and so much more. Once your picks feel good, you can play with as little as $1. If you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money.
Yeah, you meant to say strikeouts there, but you said significant strikes, which is a perfect transition for what I'm talking about with my Underdog UFC picks. And it's a fight we're both going to talk about shortly between Andreas Gustafsson and Trevin Giles. I'm targeting Andreas Gustafsson higher than 0.5 finishes. So basically, if he finishes the fight, we're getting a bonus multiplier on that at Underdog, which makes this payout a little bit juicier. And then with that, I'm playing Trevin Giles lower than 27.5 significant strikes. Giles lands about 3 significant strikes per minute. And if he gets finished, he doesn't get very many minutes to do that. I think Andreas Gustafsson is going to wrestle him. We're going to talk more about that fight, but that is the Underdog slip I'm making. And as I've pointed out, that's my favorite thing about playing on Underdog is we can build some of this correlation into our picks and get a bonus payout because of the odds on the Gustafsson higher than 0.5 finishes. So if you want to join me till this or any other UFC picks, download the Underdog app or go to UnderdogFantasy.com and sign up with promo code Action Network to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. That's promo code Action Network. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, or 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text Next Step to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And yeah, we're going to get to our top props in a second. Sean, you started off, then I'll go back to Andreas Gustafsson.
Well, let's keep it with the Trevin Giles and Andreas Gustafsson fight. You've got it as one of your top props. I have it as one of my best bets. We'll talk about it right now after the underdog segment. I like Gustafsson on the money line. I projected him closer to minus 190, would bet him up to minus 180. Is an older prospect, though, making his debut off a Contender Series, 34 years old. He won as a minus 250 favorite over Pat Picklick on Contender Series. Really good cage control, abuses people up against the fence. And I do think the Apex in particular is perfect for this guy's style. And he's going to be running it right back from Contender Series into his UFC debut inside of the Apex. And I think worth noting as well, he is the more natural fighter at this division. Giles used to fight a division lower, ended up coming up. I think Gustafsson just has him covered in terms of physicality and size and bullying him against the fence. Like him up, as I said, to minus 180, but I would also consider betting his inside the distance prop. I projected that at plus 114, like that at plus 130, and that is one of Billy's top props for this week. So, Billy, continue to give me your breakdown on this fight, what you thought about Gustafsson on Contender Series, what you think his potential is in the UFC beyond just fighting Trevin Giles in his debut.
Yeah, I was pretty high on him coming into the Contender Series. I picked him to win that fight by knockout at like plus 150 or so, and he did. He's very aggressive. He just throws really hard. And if he doesn't knock you out immediately, he goes to the clinch, push you up against the fence, and then has awesome takedowns. He started Greco-Roman wrestling when he was 6 and did that for like 20 plus years before transitioning to MMA. And for those who don't know, in Greco, you can't shoot at someone's legs or touch their legs. It's all clinch takedowns. So like that in a small cage, and when I can lean you against the wall and do all my Greco is just a pretty good combination. And then he's very, very aggressive once it gets to the ground, hunting finishes, both strikes and submissions, but mainly strikes. And Trevin Giles took this fight on short notice.
Yep.
I think they're both trying to be welterweights, but they moved this to 180-pound catchweight. But Gustafsson is definitely the bigger, stronger fighter, like looks bigger and tougher. And I'm really worried about Giles' chin. He's been knocked out 3 times, like basically once per year over the last 3 years. Also got submitted by Gabriel Bonfim. Just a lot of ways this can go wrong for him. And then when you factor in that he's coming in on short notice, cardio probably not what it should be. That gives a lot of late stoppage equity to Gustafsson. I'm with you on the money line. I would play that as well if I didn't like the inside the distance at plus 130. Just slightly better. I think those are both great picks. As far as his ceiling, I don't think it's super high because he is 34. And I also think he's going to struggle against tall fighters in a big cage. So when you get to those, more notable fights and they move you out of the Apex, that Greco is not going to work. Reminds me a lot of Mark Madsen, but bigger. If you remember, Mark Madsen came in, looked awesome when he could shove people against the fence and use that Greco-Roman wrestling. But the first time he had to fight at range and couldn't chase a guy down, that became a big problem for him. It was more of a problem for Madsen because the smaller weight classes, they're shorter. The cage is proportionately bigger to them. But I think he's going to run into the same kind of ceiling where he's going to look awesome for a few fights, just ragdolling people against the fence. But then they're going to give him like Neil Magny or something who just stays 12 feet away from him in a giant cage, and it doesn't work out.
Shout out to Marco Madsen, Olympic silver medalist, former Better Collective sponsored fighter. Our parent company used to sponsor Marco Madsen when he was active in his career. So love Marco Madsen around here. I don't believe he retired, right? He hung him up?
Yeah.
We're going to get to a couple other props before we get to our best bets for today's slate. I'm going to go with the Billy Ray Goff Ramiz Brahimov fight to end inside the distance, or the under 2.5, more likely at minus 165. I projected this minus 225 to end inside the distance. It's listed at about minus 215, so there is a slight edge there. But I prefer the under 2.5 because Brahim's finishing upside is generally early in round 1. He's a good, dangerous submission grappler, but he tends to run out of ideas after 5 minutes. Doesn't have the best cardio. He's extremely hittable. And Goff is very aggressive and good at rallying in fights. So I actually think the best bets here, maybe Goff to win in round 2 at plus 500 or round 3 at plus 850. But I do like the under 2.5 at minus 160. Goff inside the distance at even money. If Brahimaj does not get the finish in round 1, I think you could actually bet Goff live after round 1 as well. You may get a better price than his pre-fight money line. Billy, before we move on to another fight that we both have thoughts on that kind of lends itself to the best bet section, any thoughts on Goff against Brahimaj? I know you mentioned that you were considering betting Brahimaj, but any other thoughts or bets on that fight?
Yeah, he was one of my luck ratings pick early in the week at plus 270. I don't think the money line has changed much there. I view this as a pretty binary fight where Brahimaj
Mhm.
is clearly the better grappler and Goff is clearly the better striker. But, as we keep pointing out, in the Apex makes grappling a little bit easier. And Brahimaj had like a 2-year layoff before he lost to Themba Garimbo. And that's kind of one of those things, like, I kind of always want to fade fighters on their first fight back from a long break, and then looked awesome against Mickey Gall in the fight after that. Picked up a knockout, which I didn't really think was something we were going to see out of him. It was his first win in his career by anything other than submission. So if you didn't tail me on that money line bet now, I would probably just play Brahimaj by submission and just get the better price, because that is the more likely way he does it. And it's also worth pointing out, this is a weird fight. They were both scheduled to fight other opponents who couldn't get visas. So then they just put them against each other and then put those other two opponents against each other, which I think is more relevant or more helpful to Brahimaj, because now Goff is all of a sudden fighting a tricky grappling submission specialist where you might have done your camp a little bit differently that way. Where Brahimaj, much like, the Merabs or the Dagestani guys of the world, they're going to fight the same way no matter who it's against. They're going to try to get takedowns and submit you. There's not really a lot of variance in opponent styles as far as how they're going to train. So I think that's a little bit of a edge to Brahimaj. Not a huge one. And yeah, I'm with you on the fight ends early. You could even go Brahimaj round 1, all the same kind of logic.
Let's go to a light heavyweight fight before we turn our attention to Jafel Filo against Alan Nascimento, which we both have thoughts on. Justin Jacoby, minus 185. Bruno Lopez, about plus 160. I lean to Jacoby to win by knockout at plus 180, projected that closer to plus 170. And I would also rather not lay the juice on his money line. I think if he's hurting Lopez, he's likely to win the fight by knockout. Is slowing down a little bit athletically in his late 30s. I think Lopez, the younger man, capable of showing more improvements, being the faster guy, just the better athlete inside the cage. But in an extended fight, in a smaller cage, I think Jacoby counters and catches Bruno Lopez at some point and finishes him inside the distance. Don't want to make a significant bet on it, but I'd rather bet the plus 180 on Jacoby KO than lay minus 185 on Jacoby's money line. Billy, any thoughts on Jacoby against Bruno Lopez for Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, my gut is telling me that the wheels got to fall off for some point at Dustin Jacoby, because he's also got like a lot of boxing and kickboxing experience. Like, he's had 30 MMA fights like after a whole kickboxing career. And I say that, and I say that's what my gut tells me. And then he comes out and looks great, and knocks out Vitor Petrino, another like Brazilian, somewhat hyped prospect, and now gets another one. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about it. If I had to bet it, it'd probably be Bruno Lopez money line, but I don't know. Like, when is Dustin Jacoby going to look old? Because he hasn't yet. It just seems like it should happen soon, if not now.
Yeah, it's his second stint in the UFC. He had an MMA career, went to Pride for a while, and then came back to MMA. And it's a much improved fighter in his second stint with the promotion. But
Glory,
getting up
not
there in
pride. He's
age.
not that old.
What's that?
Glory, not pride. He's not that old.
Yes, Glory. I'm sorry. Yep. Yeah. Pride would be quite the transition to make, and then to come back to the UFC. That you're talking about a guy who'd be 55 at this point, not 37. Right. Yeah, my apologies there. Thank you for the correction. One of the more hotly debated fights on the card this week, Jafel Filo against Alan Nascimento. Two very good grapplers. Neither has ever, Nascimento's never been finished. Filo has only been submitted twice in his MMA career. Nascimento never finished, but Nascimento coming off of a 2-year layoff here. You just mentioned wanting to fade guys coming back off of the layoff. We don't really have any reason in particular why that layoff happened. He pulled out of a bunch of fights, but he also had opponents pull out of fights as well. So do you happen to know why Nascimento was pulling out of those fights or was on such a significant layoff? You're betting Filo on the money line. I like the GTD here, projected that at minus 175. Would bet it at about minus 150 or better. But if there's a reason you have why Nascimento was pulling out, injury related or otherwise, it may change my opinion on the GTD. So why are you betting Filo here aside from the layoff? And then how do you view this fight playing out?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about the specifics. The only fight that is listed as like Nascimento's opponent pulling out was this spring, March 1st this year. So it still would have been more than 2 years without a fight, just based on the ones that he pulled out of. One was listed as an illness, a few just like he withdrew, which probably means there was an injury in there, some time off, whatever. I do not know the details. More of my bet is because I just think Jafel Filo is really, really good. Yes, he got submitted by Muhammad Makayev, but he had Makayev dead to rights in a knee bar in the third round of a fight he took on like less than a week's notice. Muhammad Mokaev is undefeated and like might actually be the best flyweight in the world, but Dana White hates him, so we don't get to find out if that's true or not. And Jafel Filo like really should have won that fight. Like I don't know how Mokaev just powered through that knee bar. And then Filo was understandably gassed after that. It was deep into the third round. He sold out for a submission, didn't get it, and he took the fight on a few days' notice. So that was a huge stock up for him. And then 2 straight first-round submissions after that. And then he went and did a grappling match against Amir Albazi and beat him in a straight grappling match in December. So Nascimento's better ability is his grappling. I just think Filio is better at the thing that Nascimento is good at, if that makes sense. And we're getting him at plus money, and then you factor in the 2-year layoff. I am on Filio straight up. I don't think any flyweight, like less than maybe Pantoja, beats him in a grappling-focused match at this point right now. There's some other guys, coming way up, like all the Japanese grapplers who possibly could beat him in a grappling match right now too. But I just really like how Filio's adapted that for MMA. A little bit younger, definitely been healthier and more active, which is also a big factor. And they're both 2-1 in the UFC. So like, how do you justify Nascimento favored when they have more or less the same resume, but one guy's been out for 2 years?
Let's move on to our best bets on this card. I already gave out one, which was Gustafsson. You give out Filo, which is your best bet on this card. Curious if you have any other fights you're targeting, if you have any thoughts on Ketlin Vieira against Macy Chiasson. Chiasson opened, I believe, is an underdog or definitely closer to a pick'em price. She's now out to a minus 120 favorite. 3 inches taller, has a 4-inch reach advantage, is the more efficient striker, plus 0.2 to minus 0.7 differential at distance per minute throughout their respective careers. When I'm citing strike differential stats, that is not including ground strikes. That is purely distance striking stats. I've had those filtered out. Now, Vieira is considered the better grappler of the pair, but looking at control rate of grappling time, she's only controlled 59% of her control time in the UFC. Chiasson, 70%. So I actually think Chiasson is going to be more competitive here in the grappling than people are expecting, potentially even land takedowns of her own. She's been getting and landing proactive takedowns in her recent fights. She was dominating the Irene Aldana fight until getting a very weird liver kick from bottom against her that knocked her out. I was on Aldana in that fight. That was one of the luckiest tickets I will ever cash. She was completely losing that fight, just happened to throw an up kick from bottom, and it happened to hit Chiasson right on the liver and knock her out. I've never seen somebody get finished with a liver kick from bottom. I've seen head kicks from bottom, but never a liver kick to the body. Just absolutely stunning. And even like her most recent loss, the Raquel Pennington loss getting submitted by her. Pennington, future champion. I believe there was another future champion that she lost to as well. Overall, I think Chiasson still ascending, still improving as a fighter. I think Vieira sort of plateaued. I think she has ways to win the fight, but I do think Chiasson is improving in those areas where many would expect Vieira to have the advantage. So I projected her around minus 145, would bet Macy Chiasson up to minus 130. Do you have any thoughts on that fight, Billy? And then any other thoughts on any of the other fights on Saturday's 11-fight card?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. One correction I'm going to make, you described Rocky Pennington as a future champion or future and former champion. She is still the champion as far as I'm concerned. She beat Juliana Pena. I will hear nothing of anything different. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't want to bet it now. Like if you miss the plus money, it's hard to justify. That's not how it works, right? Like a minus 120 ticket is a minus 120 ticket, no matter what the price used to be. But it's just hard for me to get over that mentally. I am more or less with you thematically, but not betting it myself. And I think we covered almost every fight, despite this being a fairly low-level one. So, yeah.
Any thoughts on Levitt against Hollabaugh? I know a lot of people have Hollabaugh tickets this week. Any underdog interest there? I know you don't generally like Hollabaugh, so.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I should probably – like, Hollabaugh's probably the right side here, but I both love Jordan Levitt and will never bet on Kurt Hollabaugh, so here we are.
Yeah, and that'll cover all 11 fights on this Saturday's card. So that'll do it for our UFC betting preview. You can find more UFC betting content from both Billy and myself on actionnetwork.com. And if you'd like to instantly tell some of the best that we discussed on today's show, look for the quick links both in the podcast description or the video description on YouTube, and visit actionnetwork.com/betnow to find those quick links. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and sign up for Action Pro for immediate access to expert picks and analysis. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend. Enjoy the violence. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.